Ben and myself, we collaborated on our final year thesis project in NUS, and I think that was a point whereby we were both interested on exploring the idea of design and how we can get communities involved in the whole design process. And it was also about looking at the whole participation landscape, participatory design and community engagement. The year of our thesis year was really to explore on various methods or tools of getting people involved. Final year project, we were working at an estate in Singapore called MacPherson, and that was really a time for us to experiment. So this whole concept was still pretty new to us. Singapore was still in a very infancy stage of participation, and you look at successful cases like New York, for example, Copenhagen, Japan, Tokyo, Hong Kong, and also Taipei. They have already been doing such practices of getting communities involved in the planning or design process, and that became an inspiration for us of how can we then apply that into our local context. I grew up in Singapore. We were never really taught to kind of participate, having the civic responsibility compared to people like in Copenhagen. Having gone through like the architecture education in NUS, and I think the final year was for us to really question our role as designers or as future architects. We want to question the status quo. I think that's one of the main driving reason on why we want to promote an alternative way of doing design and planning, and we know that there's a lot more that we can do to further improve that process, and we can only do that if we try our own methods of participatory design, and to question whatever that is currently working or not working in the current landscape of planning and design. We saw that there was a missing gap in the current landscape of design and also of an architecture, and there was no specific non-profit group that advocates for a participatory approach in design, and we thought we could actually fill in the gap. And that's where we decided, PID came about as a movement at first, but I guess as we move along, we thought for us to make much of a bigger impact, we have to kind of put in our 100% in advocating for various projects in Singapore, do a couple more research projects, and to kind of go around promoting the work that we do. And also because we wanted to, after doing I think about 2 to 3 years of practicing participatory design, working with communities, for us we felt that there was a lot more that we still need to learn, and there was a desire or curiosity of finding out why is even participation important in our local context. And we went on a kind of like a discovery whereby we interviewed various people in Singapore. We spoke to like architects, designers, entrepreneurs, grassroots, government agencies, some of the MPs, for example, for us to kind of get a better understanding of the current landscape of participation in Singapore. We were fortunate enough to get a grant from the Philip Yeo Initiative, and we had a chance to also travel to New York and Copenhagen. And for us, that was really to learn from what is successful in the various cities, and how we can apply it back, we can learn from them and apply it back to our local context. Our value as a non-profit to create this awareness of a participatory approach in design, and also becoming a platform to kind of reach out to either designers, students, or even professionals who wants to do social good projects locally using their own expertise. As Singaporeans, we might not be very used to go for a design workshop, and our role was how do we make participation or design, the concept of it, a lot more accessible. Our rule of thumb is always a 12-year-old kid needs to be able to understand. So the first step is to create an awareness that something might happen to this space. So basically whoever that might be affected but by whatever that we build in this leftover space should be involved in this design process. So for example, in that case, it would be the immediate residents, it would be the elderly home, it would be the grassroots, the town councils, for example. Start engaging all of these various stakeholders. So one of our methods is to actually go to the people. So we do that through, for example, a pop-up event whereby we have various stickers for them to kind of interact with. And that is kind of like the initial stage of understanding the needs or challenges that people actually face. Second step is bringing the people to us. So we do that through design charades or design workshop, whereby we use it as an opportunity to get different stakeholders involved. And the next step is to then come up with a design brief or a design solution based on understanding and creating together with people. And I think for that particular project, for us, design just doesn't stop there. after doing the design, it still move on, for example. Can we talk about community fundraising? Can we get people to actually fundraise some of the elements that they want to have in the area? Because at the end of it, we are kind of coming in as outsiders. We will leave the community after the end of the project. And what happens? How can we ensure that people, the residents are able to continue what we have started in the community. Another example of, I guess, an arts project. So the project was called Dear Neighbor, and that was an experiment for us also because we wanted to find out if people knew their neighbors. This exercise was really a good way to kind of map out the strengths and assets that exist within the community. But we do had various interesting responses. So for example, we have people who thank like the coffee uncle, for making coffee every morning, for example. We have people who thank like the neighborhood cleaner for making the neighborhood a much cleaner place. And we have people who identify various people assets, like this name Sally keeps popping up whenever we spoke to the people. And we realized that Sally is a very important person in the neighborhood because she organized a lot of events for the residents. We did a walking conversation in Tampines whereby we wanted the residents to map out what is working in the area, what is not working, and what more can be done to the area. And sometimes in participation, we have residents who came out to us and say, oh, you guys must have decided whatever you wanted to do, right? Why are you engaging me? So people have that perception of why are you doing engagement? And because they are so used to decision being made for them. And interestingly enough, these people, after explaining to them, these people are the ones that will be advocates, because some of the feedback they mentioned was that, oh, through these activities, I actually get to know a lot more about my neighborhood, and through this kind of platform, I get to know more of my neighbors, which I might not have met them in other situation. And for example, in like a design workshop, we have people coming out to us and say, you know what, this is a very important platform for people to come. And they felt that more people should actually be involved in such a design process. And I think that by just using that statement, that shows a lot of how they value their involvement in the process. And if they have a very good experience, they will be our word of mouth to promote like participation to their family or their neighbors, so that they will be involved. They might come for our future engagement activities. Of course, I think different projects will have different kinds of challenges. Maybe in the Tampines project that we are doing. So for Tampines, we were involved in engaging residents in the neighborhood planning of the Tampines Changkat area. And I think one of the main challenges is that I think one of the main stakeholders asked us, how many people do you want to engage? Like, how many people is good enough to ensure that it's a good kind of participation? And I mean, to be honest, there's no such thing as a golden number, meaning like you need to engage 100%, for example, because that will never happen in any kind of engagement process. So that was kind of like the first challenge that we have to undertake in terms of kind of convincing I guess like stakeholders or like architects or clients or grassroots who might not be so exposed to participation in general. So for us, it's about how do we get the word out there, and we know that it takes time to convince or to get support, buy-in from our local stakeholders. So that was kind of like the first challenge. We were being approached by NCSS and also Pacific Activity Centre. So they are involved in creating Senior Activity Centre, the SACs. We started off by firstly understanding some of the needs and also challenges that the seniors face, and we do that through interviews. So it's a very in-depth interviews whereby we use that as a chance to gather stories and find out what is most important to the elderly. And we posted various community notice boards in the Senior Activity Centre, and to also find out, for example, what are some of the ideas. What is their idea of a community kitchen? For elderly, we tend to use more images and more graphics to get their response. And the second stage is about creating together with them. So next week, we are doing a design workshop with the elderly, whereby we will be bringing a physical model of the whole interior space. The seniors have a lot of ideas of what they want to have in the kitchen. For example, they were sharing that, this kitchen, you need to have, like various long tables so that at least 3 or 4 people is able to kind of prepare food, because they want to not only cook on their own, but they want to cook together with their family and friends. And it should also have a space whereby you can conduct sharing sessions or like demonstration. Moving forward, like community fundraising, for example, because most of our projects, it's kind of like the very first in Singapore. When we approach like town council, they will be like, oh, I never done this before. I don't know where can I fit your project. So there's a lot of experimentation and a lot of I guess convincing that we had to do to kind of show the stakeholders the value of our community design project in the neighborhood. Every project, because it's a different set of community, and we might face different challenges, which I think is not exactly a challenge but more as an opportunity. Okay, what are some of the strategies to engage different types of target audience? So for elderly, there will be a separate set of challenges that you have to do. For example, you can't do like a 3-hour workshop with the elderly. They will lose focus. The youth is one of the most challenging age group for us to engage in talking about situations. It's a realm that we are still learning. What is the best way for us to reach out to the youth? Is it using technology, using social media, for example? I think we did have a lot of discussion on why even set up a non-profit to do this, and it could just be like a movement, or it could be just be a hobby that we wanted to do. But at a certain point, I think we both, like I shared just now, that we know that there is this missing gap or missing link in the current landscape of design and planning in Singapore. Or we don't see anyone else coming up to advocate for a community design or community built or participatory design that works within our local context. And that's where we really see ourselves as advocating participatory methods. We want to improve Singapore one neighborhood at a time, and in order to do that, we have to do various projects in our local neighborhoods. And the more we work with various communities, the more we can kind of test out or improve our methods in the way we work with community, and the way we design together with people and not for people. I think the more we do various community projects, a lot of people saw the value in this and said, oh, you know what, because of your involvement, I have a much higher sense of ownership to this space. I mean, stories like this is actually very empowering for us to continue the work that we are doing, and we hope to be able to contribute or work with more communities in Singapore so that they will have a higher appreciation of a community-driven process, and how they see themselves in this whole neighborhood design. And I guess my hope is for for Singaporeans to have a greater awareness of the way our neighborhoods are being planned, and it's not just leaving the decision to the experts, but people themselves, they are the local experts, and they need to see the value in that. Any resident or community to make an informed decision, they will need to be equipped with proper information, and also a much greater transparency of information and education as well.